All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, July 6th. Fuck it. It's a raw feed. We're doing it live. We're doing it early. I'm Clayton.
Well, we're not doing it early for me. Right now, I'm at a nice leisurely mid-morning time, 11 a.m. here in beautiful Paris, France. I'm relaxed. I had a run. I'm feeling good. Had a full night's sleep. How are you doing, Clayton? What time is it? What time is it in the States right now?
Well, in America, where it matters, it's 5:20 a.m.
Okay,
I mean,
great.
if
Well, you
you're there in France in the week of our country's birth,
yes.
and it's great that you're well rested, but
Mm-hmm.
here in
Mm-hmm.
America, we working men are just trying to get some sleep.
Yeah, I think this is good for you. I think you've always been someone who should have been starting work in the middle of the night when it's dark out, and I think this is you getting to where you should be, which is not a lot of sleep, bad night's sleep, starting work really early. So I think also congratulations. I know that you people had a holiday this week in the States. So I hope that went well. I hope you ate your American foods and your meat byproducts and all that. So I hope that was fun for you over in the United
So,
States.
Pat, I think all you're really doing is ingratiating me more to our audience than anything. It feels like you're trying to denigrate
I,
me and this great country, and really all you're doing is turning people against you.
I
Because what
don't think
I
so.
did for Fourth of July was I ate a pound of dirt, great
Hmm.
American dirt. I shotgunned a beer, and then I bought a Sound of Freedom ticket to pay it forward, like all real Americans.
Well, I mean, I think we got to get into it. Also, I don't think any of the audience is offended by what I'm saying. The wannabe o boys, wannabe o girls, wannabe o people
People.
are are very are very aspirational. So I think this gives them motivation. This gives them something to shoot for,
Oh,
knowing that
someday
you
they'll
don't
get to
only
go
have
over
to
to
eat dirt.
they'll get over to France and burn down libraries like you're doing.
Listen, I'm over here. I don't know what's going on, what you're talking about with library burnings. All I know is I went to Le Cinema last night. I'm going to give a shout out right now to a fine cinema in Paris, the Christine Cinema Club. It was a great experience. My wife and I saw Thelma et Louise. It was shown in English with French subtitles, which I think is how all movies should be shown, no matter what language they're in and no matter what country they're shown in. Show it so that we hear English and we see French subtitles, and that's a great experience. So, Thelma et Louise, loved seeing it on the big screen. Brad Pitt, when he had his shirt off in this movie, the crowd went bonkers. And so, shout out to Christine Cinema Club. If any of our listeners can reach a point where they get to see a movie in Paris, check out the Christine Cinema Club. Tell them that BO Boy Pat sent you. So,
I
there's our
can't.
free plug. But
There goes all of our Minifans and our Stoolies. Thanks, Pat. Just
no,
alienated them.
listen,
You should be
they
You should be on a river in a raft drinking a high noon is what you should be doing in the great country of America instead of sitting in a theater with a bunch of frogs watching a movie that's been out for what 30 years.
and it's still playing strong. And you know what?
Doesn't
I
matter what
maybe I
they
will
think about the
maybe
movie.
I maybe I will take a float down the Seine, which is a beautiful river here in Paris that is only a few cobblestone blocks away from where I'm staying, my pied a terre. So maybe I'll ride down the Seine later. But let's get into this American film
Yeah, let's
that
because
opened
people are
on your
disgusted at
American
this point. I think
holiday.
everybody switched over. Everybody switched over. I mean,
S-
any chance of us winning this ratings book is
They're
out
they're
the
not
fucking window.
No, they're not switching on the dial. They're tuning in. It's like the old adage that when they're angry about what I'm saying, they only listen longer. So I think this is playing great. But let's get again into you had an American holiday, and usually on this episode, our weekend preview, we're only looking ahead. But this weekend, this episode, we've got results we have to go over. We basically had a second mini weekend with new results and a new film that opened up. So, Clayton, you're the American who's eating dirt. Tell us what happened on Tuesday on the American 4th of July holiday and this battle
Well,
at the box office. Who won this battle at the box office?
so Sound of Freedom, we talked about it previously. They're doing a grassroots campaign where, you can track the pre-sales for this film, which is very
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
tracking them all weekend. And so there was a battle between Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and Sound of Freedom that Deadline had called, that
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny had barely beat Sound of Freedom on 4th of July. Now, just to give you an idea of this, Dial of Destiny is at 4,600 theaters. Sound of Freedom is at 2,634 theaters. But the numbers tells a different story. The numbers says that
Mm-hmm.
Sound of Freedom had $14.2 million and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny had 11.6. So that means that the numbers is calling Sound of Freedom as the winner for the 4th of July holiday. Now, we
Wow.
could, if we wanted to, go to the website and actually
Mm.
figure this out ourselves.
Right. We could. Well, so here's what I think is happening here. First of all, we got to give a shout out to wannabe oh boy Adam from the Stacks, who we
Mm-hmm.
talked about this last week. Deadline and all these trade rags, they're only discussing Sound of Freedom now. They got caught with their pants down,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Deadline got caught with his pants down. Anthony D is for doesn't understand that Sound of Freedom was coming. He got caught with his pants down. We talked about this 2 episodes ago, thanks to a tip from Adam from the
Mm-hmm.
Stacks. And I think part of what's happening here is this movie was scheduled to only open on Tuesday, July 4th. That's when it was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to open. And we had some not misinformation, but we were gathering information a couple episodes ago and didn't know whether it was going to open over the weekend, but it was only supposed to open on Tuesday. But reports are coming in that there were less cinemas in the United States
Don't
that
say that.
were showing Sound of Freedom on the Monday, July 3rd.
Nice.
And here's what I think is possibly happening is that the numbers is rolling all of the Monday screenings also into the Tuesday number, whereas Deadline, which of course, because Anthony D is for Disney,
Yeah. Yeah.
D'Alessandro, does not want Sound of Freedom to go down as the winner for 4th of July box office. He is separating that so that the number for Sound of Freedom is just the Tuesday sales and is therefore like $100,000 lower than Indiana Jones. That is my thought on what is probably happening, why the numbers has Sound of Freedom at 14 and Deadline has it lower. So, I mean, do you think that is
I love how
possibly
it's
what's
so
going on here?
convenient. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's so convenient how when they want to prop up a movie, they can add in all these different previews, but for Sound of Freedom, they can't do it, right? I mean,
Right.
listen, Transformers opened to 60, and that was because they were counting Tuesdays, they were counting everything. And it's like, you can do that, and that's fine. I mean, but if Sound of Freedom wants to do that, which I think they have the right to. I mean, here's the thing with Sound of Freedom. I think they should just do a full. They should just do a full 6 day or whatever it'll be from the Tuesday to the Sunday, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just roll with that, and just possibly win the whole box office. Because if these other movies can say, well, these were previews, they could just be like, well, July 4th was a preview day, and so was the Monday, and so was this day. Why not play that
Yeah.
game? Why not play that game and
Yes.
unseat Dial of Destiny and upset Insidious?
Yes. Yes. Because when we get to the weekend preview numbers, the 6 day for Sound of Freedom very possibly could be bigger than the 5 day of any other movie or the 3 day of any other movie this weekend.
Yeah.
Very easily. I mean, here's the thing. It is embarrassing if you are Disney and you're Indiana Jones that this is even a competition at all.
Mhm.
This is a $300 million IP starring Harrison Ford, the fifth movie of one of the most popular movie franchises of all time. The fact that Anthony D is for Disney D'Alessandro has to D for deceive audiences and try and do
Mhm.
his funny math to even make it close. Indiana Jones beating Sound of Freedom. This is a movie starring Jim Caviezel, who honestly has been out of the public consciousness aside from this specific type of movie, these religious movies. He's been out of public awareness for decades now. And the
Mhm.
fact that Indiana Jones, even with all of Deadline's mathematical trickery, is only 100,000 ahead is embarrassing for Indiana Jones, for Disney. It should not have been this close.
No.
Indiana Jones should be making, $30 million on 4th of July Tuesday
Mhm.
if it was playing the way it was supposed to play. It's embarrassing for them that it is this close.
And Anthony is comping this 4th of July opening to Superman Returns, which
Yes,
is
that
a
is.
famous disaster. Which is a disaster. So I forgot that that was a continuation of the Donner movies. Did you
Yeah.
remember that?
It,
That
it,
he was supposed to be the same
I
character as Christopher Reeves?
I'll be honest, I may have never seen that movie. As Superman is, we've established, not our thing, and we don't have high hopes for the James Gunn
No.
Superman that's coming out in 5 to 15 years. But the fact that Anthony D is for I don't know. I can't come up with what he's doing here, which is going back. D is for decades because he's going back decades to find a comp that is favorable to the opening of this Indiana Jones movie.
Well,
I
even
mean,
that.
you might as well then find a comp from 50 years ago and say, look, Indiana Jones is opening better on the same weekend in 4th of July as On the Waterfront did
Mhm.
in 1950, and just make that comp because you have to go so far back to find something that Indiana Jones doesn't look bad against.
So let's move on to this weekend because this is really interesting, and we're going to be talking about Sound of Freedom. In what we think the 3 day is going to be, but
Well,
Indiana Jones, this is a
just
disaster.
real quick, it's a disaster. I want to ask you. I mean, Sound of Freedom. We
Hmm.
touched on it when Wanna Be Oh Boy Adam from the Stacks brought it to our attention a few episodes ago. And this whole pay it forward ticket scheme
Yeah,
that Angel Studios is doing this
and
movie
we
where you
say
could buy
scheme with love.
tickets.
We say scheme with love.
Of course, schemes. Listen, it's box office. You got to have a scheme. We always are in favor of schemes, and this is a scheme
Hmm.
where they are incentivizing their audience to buy tickets for other audience members who possibly can't afford a ticket,
Yeah,
and they're gamifying the whole idea of selling tickets because they've come up with this thing. There's 2 million kids who've been kidnapped, and so we want to sell 2 million tickets. And, we're not going to get into specifics of this topic at all, but just the idea that, hey, we want to sell 2 million tickets because 2 million is a cool number in the subject of what we're talking about in this
yeah.
movie. And I mean, it's paying off. Like, what do you think of this whole strategy of getting people to buy tickets for other people who can't afford tickets, and gamifying the idea of tickets sold, making audiences be invested in the total number of tickets that are sold?
Now, I guess this was piloted with their last release, which I can't think of what it was called right now, but they did pilot this idea, so they knew they were probably going to launch it with this one. And I think this
Mm-hmm.
is a brilliant idea. I mean, that's the thing is these independent movies. I mean, we had Terrifier 2 earlier last year that just did Bafa Bobo, right? And that was a
Mm-hmm.
groundswell
Mm-hmm.
of grassroots people vomiting. I mean, we were part of it. We photographed the vomit. It was real. People were passing
Right.
out, people were
Yeah, it was real
vomiting, and
vomit.
everybody was saying it was fake. And we actually got it on camera, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
thing with that is that what if Terrifier would have had the same sort of structure where it was like 2 million terrorized kids every year. You know what I mean? Like there's 2 million kids that are scared out of their wits by clowns every year. Let's buy tickets for every
Right.
single one of them, right? And
Right.
buy a ticket for a gorehound, for for one of those people who can't afford right now. They just
Yes.
bought a big life-size bust of Leatherface, and now they can't afford to go see a movie, so pay it forward, because at some point someone is going to buy a big Jason bust and can't afford a ticket to a movie, and it's karma. It's horror movie karma.
Yes.
And I think that sort of thing, if they would have done that there, that is something that could, going forward, work for a bunch of movies, not just faith-based movies, because it's fun to watch that ticker. I was watching that ticker all
Yes.
weekend. I was like, are they going to reach their next
Yes.
goal? Are they going to reach the next? And I know, listen, it's kind of like watching an Indiegogo, right? But it's different because it's box office. Because for us, you can
Right.
actually see the tickets being bought. That is something that no other studio has ever done, shown us the
Right.
tickets, because they don't
Right.
want to do it. And the reason why is because if you showed how many people were buying Indy 5 tickets, no one would buy Indy 5 tickets because they'd say, "Oh my god, that's really low. This movie's going to stink. I'm not going to go."
Right. 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 And I love that idea of you just spending the American holiday eating dirt, watching Angel Studios ticket counter at the bottom of their website. And it also harkens back to a more innocent time of the internet that I think people long for now, which is, remember, you go to a website and you'd
Mhm.
see the view or the visitor counter at the bottom of every website. So you'd go to the website for the Peter Pan guy who used to dress like Peter Pan, and you go to his website and show your friends, and at the bottom you would see the visitor counter go up for the Peter Pan guy website. And Angel Studios, by having a ticket counter at the bottom of their website for Sound of Freedom, is bringing that back, and people love to see that. Is this something that I know what you're saying, that with Indiana Jones, the ticket sales may have been too embarrassing to see. But if they had come up
Mhm.
with, if Disney had come up with some kind of incentive, or not an incentive, but saying, we need to sell 10 million tickets on Tuesday, and each ticket represents, a drop of Metamucil that Harrison Ford has used, or each ticket represents a wrinkle on the foot of Harrison Ford. And so we wanted 10 million wrinkles, 10 million tickets. Just something to just connect the audiences to the film, the way Sound of Fury did. Because again, they know that the whole kids thing is a big deal with Sound of Fury. So there were like 2 million kids, 2 million tickets, and people cared about
Sound
that.
of
And
Freedom,
maybe
Sound of Fury. What are you talking about?
Sound of Freedom. Again, I know this is a big movie in the States, so I'm still just
Oh
getting
god,
caught
eat
up
a
on the
hot
titles
dog
of
and
these big
catch
American
up, my
films.
friend.
So I think this could be a thing that just big studio movies adopt going forward, the whole pay it forward ticket buying. But I do think the linking tickets to something related to the movie could be a
This
marketing
is
strategy that Angel Studios gets ripped off on.
And here's what you can do, because they did this in a way in comic books in the 80s with Robin. You had two phone numbers you could call whether you wanted Robin to live or Robin to die. But for this structure, right, these superhero movies are flailing, right?
Flailing, yes.
You take this and you run with it, in the sense that this next Superman movie, all right, you do a similar thing, but it's like, we need to sell X number of tickets before opening weekend, or Superman dies, right?
Mm.
Like, we kill Superman. Like, we shot a scene where Superman dies in this movie, and if we don't reach our goal, Superman dies. Or inversely, hey, you want Superman to
Ye-
die? Buy this many tickets and we kill Superman. That's probably the better way to go about it. We
I,
effing kill Superman. And then they can always bring him back. But for this movie, if you buy X number of tickets, Superman bites the fucking dust. I'd
yeah.
pay forward for that.
Yeah, I think that I think that one's tough because it's hard to tell what will the more people want to kill Superman or not kill Superman. I think with this one they just had such a clean thing of every ticket is a kid
Mm-hmm.
and the audience is like, we like these kids, so we want a ticket per kid. The Superman lives or die is hard because the populace is just so split on something like that.
Oh, nobody likes
But
Superman.
yeah, I think that there's definitely something to making a ticket purchase represent
Mm-hmm.
something that the audience likes, and Sound of Freedom,
Yeah.
figure that out. They figure that out, and they either beat or basically tied an Indiana Jones movie on a 4th of July big holiday in the United States. So it's just a crazy box office story, and again shows how Indiana Jones 5 is just a disaster at the box
And
office.
these are the kind of innovations we need. We need these things to be stories to shake things up. I mean, you're looking at Barbie versus Oppenheimer coming up. I mean, that's
Yep.
already a headline, And if there was a way to gamify buying tickets for those movies, other than, well, I'm pro Barbie and I'm anti Oppenheimer, or I'm pro Greta and I anti Nolan. If there was a way to gamify that, to show, like, go to the website. Look, I bought that. I bought a ticket for Barbie for someone else, for a little kid. Well, not for a little kid, for a
Yes.
45-year-old man, which is who that is aimed for. But that's the thing, is like, I love the idea of gamifying this. And the reason why these big studios won't do it, though, is because it accounts for tickets in a way they don't want.
Right. Though I do think Barbie and Oppenheimer may be hitting on something similar to what Angel Studios has with Sound of Freedom, because they've set it up as a competition. Listen, if one of those studios had wanted to move Barbie or Oppenheimer to another date, they could have already. And I think it shows Warner Brothers and Universal like having Barbie and Oppenheimer open on the same date because it created a story, it created a competition, and they should adopt the pay it forward ticket
Hmm.
pricing. And I know you also, anyone could buy a ticket for someone else. Like, you could go to Fandango, you could buy a ticket. The way Angel Studios did it seems to be a lot cleaner, or at least more
Well,
direct.
it's
But
stranger. You're not buying it for a friend. You're buying it for a stranger.
you're buying it for a stranger. Yeah. So that's the thing, is Barbie really, because there is such a Barbie Oppenheimer fan base versus fan base competition. If Barbie set it up where you could just buy a random person in the country a ticket to Barbie, people would do that. People
Because
would, they find it as like a cause.
they'd be like, I wish I could go see Barbie opening weekend, but I went to Ibiza last
Right.
last
Right.
month and I'm tapped out. And now they're
Right.
like, oh wait, free Barbie tickets? Yes.
Right. And good for
Iconic.
that hypothetical person traveling abroad. That's great for them, and someone should buy that hypothetical person a ticket to see Barbie. But yeah, listen, Sound of Freedom could end up being a very innovative, historically memorable piece of box office.
Hmm.
Could be the type of movie that we see 5 years later. Oh, they're doing the Sound of Freedom strategy,
Hmm.
and for that we're talking about Super Mario 3. Like, it could be that level of innovation. So we're gonna see. So, yeah. In it's Barbie Oppenheimer, and it's Indy versus Sound of Freedom at the box office. Quite a summer competition. So, Clayton, why don't we go ahead and look ahead at this upcoming weekend finally? What do you say are the big movie that we need to talk about first that's opening?
Well, let's talk about Insidious,
Mm-hmm.
The Red Door. Now, we were
Okay.
talking before we got on mic about whether either of us had ever seen an Insidious movie, and I hadn't. Now, have you? You haven't.
I don't think so. I think I was thinking about Sinister because Sinister is the franchise
With
that
Bagul.
started with Bagul, with Ethan Hawke, with the demon that kills you through watching old family films,
Yes,
right? Or
yes.
home
Old
home movies.
home snuff films.
Right, right. Snuff films, not family films. Right. So I was thinking of Insidious. I've seen Insidious movies, therefore I have not seen Sinister movies. And it's a franchise I'm sure is pretty good. It started starring Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne, who are both people we like a lot.
Hmm.
And they acted in the first two movies. So Insidious in 2011, Insidious Chapter 2 in 2013. And those were both big hits. I mean, the high water mark of this franchise is in domestically Insidious 2 in
Hmm.
2013, opened to 40 million, got to 83 million domestic. Though, I mean, you look worldwide, this franchise, even after Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne weren't in 3 and 4, worldwide, this franchise has stayed steady.
Hmm.
Chapter 3 made 120 million worldwide in 2015. Chapter 4, Insidious: The Last Key, in 2018 made 172 million worldwide, 67 domestic, which is the second highest domestic of the franchise. So, all to say, this franchise is not ebbing, I don't think, right at the moment. I think it's in a fine spot to do well this
Well,
weekend.
3 was sort of a disaster when you look at it. I mean, down from the 40 opening of the last one, it made 22, and then it only made 52 domestic. And sure, it made 120 worldwide, which is still very good for a low budget movie like this, but it did wane at a point, but it is not waning at the moment, I think is the
No.
thing, because The Last Key, all these movies I think have had Lin Shaye, but only
Yes.
the first two had Rose Byrne and Patrick
Mhm.
Wilson, and this is the return of all of them, including the child actor who was in these movies,
Mhm.
or at least the first two, grown up. So this is really sort of a huge deal for Insidious fans, and Insidious fans are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, Lin Shaye's been in all these, and we've been talking about one of her films a lot the last month, which is There's Something About Mary.
Hmm.
She is the tanning lady from There's Something About Mary and the old lady landlord from Kingpin. So
Hmm.
she is just a presence that you know and love, and the Insidious fans know and love her. And yeah, the last movie in 2018 opened to 29.5 million. So and this one feels bigger. Obviously, it's got the name stars back, and it's got Patrick Wilson directing. Like it feels like a bigger deal than those movies. So this could, I mean, it should open at 25, and it's got a shot at opening at like 30 because the last one opened to 29. So it's very possible.
Well, here's the thing with this movie and the movie that's opening against it, Joyride, is that it's tracking Insidious is tracking very high for females under 25, which is also
Wow.
who is maybe going to see Joyride, right? So there is a bit
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
weird cannibalization going on here to have these coming out at the same time. And I feel like this Insidious movie, like you said, feels like an event. There hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
really any horror other than Boogeyman this summer, and Boogeyman was no Black Phone, and this is performing pre-sale wise akin to a Black Phone, and a
Yeah.
Candyman as opposed to Boogeyman, this is doing like 3 times the pre-sales of that. So there is a want for this. And so I feel like this thing could do bigger business than they're saying. I mean, obviously the studio's being
Yes.
conservative about it, but I do think this thing could I don't know if it could go 30, but it definitely could surprise. And I think it definitely, I mean, we'll get to the top fives, but I think this is beating Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be such I mean, again, Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny. When they were scheduling this movie and they saw that the next weekend was Insidious, was the big movie coming out, I don't think they had any thought that they were not going to be the number one movie 2 weekends in a row.
Yeah.
And the fact that that is on the table and is very possible, again, just shows how little interest there is in this Indiana Jones movie,
Hmm.
especially at that budget. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this. You know, I may try and get a screening in at a Le Cinema here in Paris and see this Insidious movie. Start with the fifth one. Why not? So I may do that. I'm very interested in Patrick Wilson's directing debut, seeing him and Rose Byrne back together. Lynn Shay, see how she's doing this far into the franchise. I think there's a lot of interesting elements about this movie. And as far as fifth movies in a franchise, Insidious seems like it has a lot more buzz in its fifth movie than Indiana Jones does for its fifth.
Now,
You know, the stars look more like they did in the first Insidious movie than Indy does in the first Indiana Jones
well, that's
movie.
for sure. I wish we could have Brent from the New Flesh podcast on, but it's,
Yes.
5:50 in the morning. So, I wonder what he would say about this franchise. I'm sure we will be able to hear about it on the great podcast, The New Flesh. Must listen
Yep.
every week. So,
Yep.
a hashtag horror lifestyle, as they say. So, it'll be interesting to see the take on this from him and his co hosts. But let's talk about Joyride.
Let's do it.
So, Joyride
So,
is the second raunchy comedy of the summer after No Hard Feelings, which I think we can safely say didn't necessarily underperform because comedies don't perform at the box office, but it did not break out.
yeah. Yeah, No Hard Feelings is not going to make 70 or 80 million. I think that is out the window after its second weekend. So, for Joyride, does the performance of No Hard Feelings give it any momentum in the sense that maybe comedy is more viable than we thought? Or does it give it more momentum because there's the feeling like Joyride could be bigger than the Jennifer Lawrence movie? That there maybe is actually more anticipation for this raunchy comedy than for the J-Law one? Like, what do you think No Hard Feelings performance has any effect on Joyride?
I mean, they're the same genre, so you have to think there would be some sort of connection between the two. Like, did No Hard Feelings whet the appetite for something even more raunchy? Because I do think this movie's going to
Mm-hmm.
be raunchier than No Hard Feelings. So
Yes.
the other thing is that it really is being aimed at the Asian market, which has
Mm-hmm.
been successful. I mean, August, what was it, 2018, we had Crazy
Mm-hmm.
Rich Asians, which again, that was based on like a large bestseller, but that was a movie that opened at 26. Its second weekend, it made 24, down only 6%. And then its third
Mm-hmm.
weekend, it made 21, down only 11%, which is amazing. But that is to say, these sort of movies don't always open huge, but if there's good word of mouth and people like it, they will maintain and add to the audience, right? Because you can see with our demo breakdowns, the Asian crowd doesn't necessarily over index most movies, right? But if there's something aimed directly at them, they're going to go, but they might not go first weekend. They might not
Right,
go
right.
until they hear it's really great, right? So I feel like this movie is going to open soft, but if it's good, it's going to have a minuscule drop. Like this
Yeah.
thing could
It
open to 7 and then the next weekend it could make 6 or 8. Like I mean, that's a possibility here. I don't think it's
right.
going to open huge because it's not a rush out to see. But maybe it is. Here's the other thing. Maybe it is. Maybe since 2018 things have changed and this is a rush out movie.
Mhm. Yeah, and it is getting really good reviews, and we're not critics, and critics aren't everything,
Huh.
but I do think for a movie like this that doesn't have major stars, it has Stephanie Hsu, who was in Everything Everywhere, got an Oscar, nom nom nom. Definitely her profile is higher, but she's not a big mainstream star. So for a movie that doesn't have stars, that is so genre specific, it's a comedy, it needs to have someone telling potential customers that this is good.
Mhm.
So this getting 90, as of now it's at like 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a number that will be that little nudge to get someone to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
If this movie was, 60%, 50% Rotten Tomatoes and people were saying it's okay. The thing this movie needs to have is not just good reviews, but specifically good reviews that say this is really raunchy, this has stuff in it that you have not seen before. I think Girls Trip, which came
Yep.
out, like 2017 or so, that to me is the comp of that had good reviews, but reviews that specifically were saying that Tiffany Haddish is a great performance. There's a scene where the guy puts his wee wee in like a coconut or something. I forget the exact specifics of that gross out gag, but there was a dick stuck in a thing gag that had people
Well,
talking. You
doesn't
had the
Tiffany
trailer
Haddish
moment.
piss on everybody?
Yes, and
Yeah.
Tiffany Haddish, I think, is caught on like a zip line and ends up like peeing and pooping on a
I don't
crowd,
think she
something like
poops,
that.
but
So
she does pee.
So maybe they were saving the poop. I may have read an unproduced screenplay for the second film that never got made, and I think on that she pooped from a zip line. But it had those moments that made people talk, like, you got to see this. And if Joyride's reviews talk about that there are scenes you got to see, then it could open big. But I think more like you said, the holds are going to be the key. No Hard Feelings opens at
Mhm.
15 and then drop 50%. It didn't have that second weekend where it opened at 15 and then the second weekend was 11,
Yeah.
and that'll be more the story of Joyride. Though, I mean, we could get into it now with our predictions. I do think this is going to overperform the opening weekend. I think there is legitimate interest in this film because it is being sold as so raunchy in a way that No Hard Feelings, they never committed to selling this is a super raunchy movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but then in that sense, when you say it's going to overperform, I mean, what does that necessarily mean? I mean, it's not going to beat Insidious.
No, but it could be. I mean, right now the estimates are, in the high single digits, and I think this could get closer to the No Hard Feelings opening number than it you would have thought a couple of months ago. No Hard Feelings opens at 15. Could Joyride do 11?
Well,
I
I mean,
think
Box
that's
Office Pro says 7 to 11, so it's possible. I mean, not that they're the end
yeah.
all be all, but there are people
No.
saying this could be, double digits, low double digits.
Well, what is your, before we get into giving our top fives and our specific numbers, where is your finger in the wind on the opening weekend of Joyride? Do you feel like there's buzz there? Is there momentum there? Is the raunch factor selling? I mean, do you personally have any thought of seeing this in an American lay cinema?
I have no interest in seeing this film, but I don't think I'm the, aim. I don't think I'm the target for this movie necessarily. I think the
Okay.
target for this movie is young and women. And that doesn't mean that men won't go see it because obviously there's the
Okay.
gross out factor. Men went and saw Girls Trip, they went and saw Bridesmaids, but I personally don't have any interest in seeing this film. But there is a group of people that would go see this movie, but also that's the same group of people that are going to probably see Insidious. That's the problem, is that young audience and that young female audience love horror movies too. So they're going to be torn. I feel like Insidious will be the thing they see first, and then they'll get to Joyride. Because
Okay.
horror is always a driver of the box office. We can't sleep on horror. So I feel like
Yes.
Joyride is going to suffer because Insidious came out, but then if the movie is good and people like it, then it's going to do well going forward. That is my take. So I think this is going to underperform or perform mid-tracking because of Insidious. That's my
Okay.
take.
I think that the young audience is so large and that the high ends of both of these movies are relatively low that they both could well overperform even if they're drawing from a lot of the same audience. And I do think Insidious as a horror movie will draw young, but it's also got older stars. Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne are also going to draw a lot of people in their 30s and 40s because Insidious isn't, as far as I know, having never seen one, a gore horror film. It's the type of horror film that I think middle-aged and oldsters will see because it's not going to be it's not Terrifier. Insidious is not a throw up in the middle of the theater type film. So I think you'll get an older audience, and Joyride could still, eat well, even if it's mainly eating from the same younger fan base.
Well, here's the thing. What are you saying when you say overperform? Because if Joyride made 15, that's overperforming. If it makes 11, that's not overperforming because there's tracking for that. It's between 7 and 11, right? So if you're going to say it's going to overperform, you would have to say that it's making 13, 14, 15. That is overperforming for this movie. If this opens to 11, that's not overperforming. That's performing at the height of its tracking, okay? So are you saying it's going to overperform, or do you say it's going to be at the high end of its tracking?
Well, let's get into it then. Let's give our top fives with our numbers and get into it. Now, one thing, we danced around it, Sound of Freedom. Are we going with a 3-day in our prediction here? Because I think obviously if it's a 6-day being counted as the weekend, that's a whole different story. I say we only give 3-day predictions for our top five.
Okay, I say that too.
Insidious and Joyride are opening on Friday, July 7th. Our prediction should be based on the 3-day starting on the Friday.
With that, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
I will go first.
Okay.
And
I feel like you're going first because you have a big bombshell that you want to drop and you want all the glory, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, I think number one is going to be Insidious. And this is probably going to be for both of us. We both talked about that. I think Insidious is going to be number one. I think it gets to 29 million. And I think Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny at number two is going to only make $24 million. I mean, I think this drop for Indy is going to be huge. The young people do not care at all. They DGAF as far as Indy. So I think the Indy drop goes as low as like 24 million. So it's Joyride one. It's number one is Insidious hitting 29 million. Number two is Indy. Then number three, I think we've got to look at Joyride as number three. I think Joyride is number three, and I think it gets to $13 million in its opening weekend. So whether you want to call that overperforming, high end of the tracking, whatever.
I just want you to know that it opens in 2,700 theaters, so it's not a huge opening.
I think that's enough. I think it gets to 13 million. I feel like there is a audience here that is not being captured by the tracking. I think it's going to overperform in certain ethnic demos, and I think young people are going to start to come around to it as the word of mouth for this movie moves from Friday into Saturday. So I think Number 3 is going to be Joyride at 13 million. Then number 4, let's put Sound of Freedom there, and even in its Friday through Sunday, it probably makes like another 8 million or so, right? So then that's number 4. And then number 5 is going to be Spidey Across the Spider-Verse is going to be number 5. So that's my top 5 is Insidious, Indy, Joyride, Sound of Freedom, Spidey.
Okay, so here's what I say. Of course, Insidious, The Red Door, number 1, hashtag horror lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I do think this makes 28. I'm going to go 28. If it made 30, 31, I would not be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I think Indiana Jones falls through the floor. It's disgusting to me that this movie retains its PLFs when Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible are going to have to fight for theirs, right?
Yeah.
This turd of a movie is going to get another weekend on the biggest screens possible. I think that's a travesty.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think it tanks because, again, when we're talking about cannibalization, Sound of Freedom, that's an older audience. I mean, it's going to be an audience that is, of course, young as well. But I do think that these religious films do well with people who are in that 50, 60, 70 plus range. And that was supposed to be some people who were going to go see Indiana Jones because they grew up on it and they just rejected it, right? And they're going to reject it hard this weekend because there's nothing behind Indiana Jones. I mean, Sound of Freedom is something that people are motivated to go see. There's no motivation to see what is already a colossal historic flop. So I think not only will Insidious beat it, but the 6th day, that from the opening to the end of that counting period, which would be Sunday, Sound of Freedom is going to make more than Indiana Jones. But it's not going to be counted as, an opening weekend. But I think it makes more money in that frame of time than Indiana Jones does, okay? But with that, Indiana Jones number 2, I think it makes $23 million. Under that, 3rd, I'm going Sound of Freedom. I think Sound of Freedom is going to be number 3 with its 3-day. I think this could make $9 million. And then under that, I think Joyride opens to... I think that opens to 8.
Wow. So you're going low end of the tracking on Joyride. If 7 to 11's a tracking, you think Joyride opens on the low end.
The reason I said that is because I think the must-see this weekend is Insidious, and the see next is Joyride. And I think Joyride is going to have a great hold. And then under that, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I think, is going to be number 5. That is my top 5.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fascinating weekend at the box office. And I'm so curious to see how the Sound of Freedom thing plays out over the weekend. Because for all we know, that movie can make $30 million this weekend. It's at this point, anything is possible with that movie and their marketing strategy.
I mean, with it beating or coming close to beating, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones on the 4th. That, if you're somebody who has bought a ticket or paid it forward, you're now invested because you're thinking, we can do this. We can take down this dinosaur, right? We can take down this huge company that rules culture, and we can take them down. Like, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, we can outgross this movie that was supposed to be a blockbuster. We can do it. It's not, it just comes down to economics. And I think that is going to be galvanizing. And I think that's going to drive ticket sales.
Right. So, and when you say you're saying that's the thought process of the Sound of Freedom ticket buyer.
Yes.
That they're thinking.
Yeah, the grassroots. Yeah. That is not my thought process, but that is the grassroots guerrilla marketing, that's what people
Right.
want to see. They want to think that they can take down the big dogs. I mean,
Right.
I think it's more akin to how we were with Terrifier. Like that's how I feel
Yes.
they feel, right?
Yes.
When we photographed, and you can listen to this episode, it's all in the archives because our
Yeah.
podcast is not just a podcast. It's a living document. It's a historical document. It's important.
Mm-hmm.
We photographed the vomit.
Mm-hmm.
And once we photographed the vomit, we became invested and part of that story and part of that groundswell to make Terrifier 2 a
Yes.
huge success.
Yes.
And we had one of the
Yes.
producers
Yes.
on. He was a great guy. We became part of the Terrifier 2 family. And that's what will make a small movie a success if you feel part of it. And the people who are invested in
Yes.
this feel like a part of it. Those people, I'm not saying I'm one of those people because I'm not, and I don't want to act like I am, but the people that are invested in that are the people who are going to drive this because now they think that they have something going, as we did with that
Yeah.
vomit photo.
Yes. 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 I mean, to the Sound of Freedom audience, the children are what the vomit was to us and the Terrifier 2 audience. And all of that means it's all motivation to buy tickets and to be invested. So whatever it takes, find your marketing scam.
Yeah.
That's the lesson here of this movie. We'll see. And also, they're getting the free publicity because by winning the day against Indiana Jones on the American 4th of July holiday, all of these outlets now have to cover Sound of Freedom. The BO Boys are covering. We were covering it for weeks thanks to our boots on the ground reporting from Anna from the Stacks. But all these outlets now have to cover it, and that is free mainstream publicity that this movie is getting. So it now could spread beyond just the church bus crowd, and you might just have people being like, what is this movie that whooped Indiana Jones's behind on the 4th of July American holiday?
Well, that's the other thing,
so that
is that we're seeing like how many people have bought tickets ahead of time on the website. Now,
right.
does that count for people who go in and buy walk-up tickets, right? Because
I would bet not.
It can't, right? So there's people who are just going to be like, that sounds like a movie I want to see and know nothing about the guerrilla marketing.
Right. Yeah, if you're just buying a ticket at a suburban lay cinema in Idaho, from the ticket taker, that's not being counted on the Angel Studios website ticket counter. So it's they got a lot going on this weekend. They got a lot going on. So it's going to be interesting to see the fallout on our Monday results episode. So Clayton, listen, email us. That's one of the big takeaways of this episode is email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. We love getting your boots on the ground reporting like we did for this past week or so on Sound of Freedom. So email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. We are now on TikTok at the BO Boys Pod. Vertical clips, courtesy of wannabe O intern Christopher. He's cutting them vertical now. They look great. They sound great. And they are now on TikTok at the BO Boys Pod. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Your reviews, your 5-star reviews, help new listeners discover this very important podcast. You are doing important work. Here's our challenge for the weekend is send this episode to a friend. Pay it forward. Pay the BO Boys forward by sending the show to at least one friend.
Yeah.
All right? Every new listener represents a new listener for the BO Boys.
Okay.
So that is huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So pay it forward, send the episode.
Well,
and
here's the thing, though.
course,
Send the link
Yeah.
to the episode so they can count as a download. Don't just send them the file.
No, send the link. Send the
Yeah,
link.
yeah,
Yeah,
send the
the Apple link. Yeah.
Because
send
every
the
link
every link
represents a new listener.
Yes, a link is a listener.
Yeah.
That's great. So you're saving listeners by sending them the show. And of
No,
course, we
you're
are
informing them.
YouTubers.
You're
So
informing
follow us.
them.
Yes, yes. So also follow us on YouTube. We are YouTubers. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. And what else do you do on YouTube, Clayton?
Ring that bell, that Liberty Bell.
Ring that bell. Yes, ring that American Lay Liberty bell. Ring that on YouTube. And Clayton, I think we've done it.
We've
You know,
done
I've got
something.
baguettes waiting for me.
You've done
Yeah,
something. You've done something,
I've done
definitely.
something. Yeah, I've got a baguette just waiting on me, so I need to go. So I think that's it, Clayton.
All right. I definitely think that's it. There's nothing more to say.
No, nothing.
Except for until next time.
We'll smell you
at
at
the
Lay Box
box
Office.
office. Nailed it.
Wee wee.